Namaste, Mandela Effected Community. I had an Indian friend tell me, if you're going to greet people, Namaste, you have to do this. It is tradition. I wanted to talk today about the effects of 4D. If you're Mandela affected, you've most likely checked out many esoteric channels and have looked in things like biocentrism or just the studies of Tesla, trying to look at how reality itself in all its forms is simply language, the language of tone, frequency, and vibration, and how that correlates to being Mandela affected in real time and what it means. One universal trait, it seems, that's been going on for all Mandela affected individuals is this sense of isolation and sense of degradation to what they thought was a strong social net. Families and friends that they thought would always be there, all of a sudden they're drifting apart from. And they find themselves with less and less of even a social life. They find themselves more alien than they ever were before. And for myself personally, ever since I was very little, I already felt that sense of alienation. But it takes a form that, for me, spiritually speaking, feels familiar and inevitable. I've reached the point in my life, especially having to deal with this campfire, California's most fatal wildfire. I've come to a point where I realized that there is a positivity to all the anguish, pain, and suffering, or rather my own personal depression. I've never felt so tense before. There's a positive to it, and it's reminding me that my whole inkling of things I know I must do are things that I know fill me up with so much love and imagination and wonder, that I know that I'm in a space where it's more possible to do than ever before, partially because all those I was hanging out with and all those I thought were really there for the long term aren't anymore. And so I literally have nothing holding me back. Hell, people sometimes ask if my Facebook's even real with the shit that I post. They're like, I don't know. This might be some AI intelligence. But, yes. But enough with my personal experience. What I'm getting at is, I find it interesting how, while my social surroundings in many ways, I don't want to say it's degraded, that's negative, too negative, cleared, clean slates, absolute clean slate. I have more opportunity of creating more or different relationships based on the state of mind I know I've inevitably had to progress to. And with this comes the feeling of 4D. You have 3D, and when you're stuck in 3D density, if you will, you are stuck with the drama. You're stuck with getting excessively lost in linear thinking, right? There is nothing. Every single one of us living in, whether America or Europe, we know of excessive linear thought, right? My favorite quote from Albert Einstein is, we live in a society, speaking of the Western world, that worships the servant and has forgotten the gift. Intuition is the gift, and rationality is but the servant. We worship that servant, we've forgotten the gift. So part of the gift, I find, is operating more on the 4D perspective of time. The campfires happen in about a month, and funny enough, people who are more on the path of awakening, and even people who aren't, have experienced this sense of time, like, leap, as if everyone had a sensation of 4D experience, whether they were conscious of it or not. That is to say, hey, what is there to say? there's to say this. If you feel like the things that are really making you depressed and down are coming to an end, your intuition's probably right. We have this threshold that's happening where I feel like we have to clear the density of the past. And once we do that, we're really living in the present moment, thereby we're really existing more in the 4D moment of recognizing our quantum selves. That is to say, letting go of the battle and not playing the game of ego, if you will. I like referring to Watchmen, a very popular movie about the superheroes and such, and I actually, barking dogs, and I forget the name of this character, but the pulsating guy, the scientist that ends up having all his particles and stuff disintegrated, and all of a sudden he becomes this electromagnetic horseman. He talks about how he's sick of being tied up in people's dramas, in people's lives, and how draining it is, and how it ultimately destroys him in the end. How he feels it does. And now he has to let loose of it. That's exactly how I feel as a Mandela affected individual. I've come to a point in a threshold where I just don't want to get lost in the drama and the lives. It's the same thing with looking at mainstream media. I'm more trying to stay informed in local news and events simply because when it comes to the national and international stuff, it just, to me, a lot of it seems like the same script, the same lies, the same agenda, the same socially engineered unconscious mechanism that I myself, as I'm sure you Mandela affected people are too, becoming aware of. So I thank you. If you are still watching this video, you are the person I've made it for. And please send a comment, something if you relate. That is to say, relate to the sense of time speeding up, but at the same time slowing down, if that makes any sense. Time feels more quantum these days, and for me it feels like it's because I've really come to the threshold of letting go of it all and pursuing that which I know I need to pursue, you know. Thank freaking goodness. 25 in less than a month, and now it's like, hey, it's time to actually live. Namaste. Have a beautiful day. Esoteric, Mandela-affected, star-seated community. Ja.